Difference of opinion and disputes are common characteristic of every democratic polity, including Indonesia, one of the largest democracies in the world. Usually, these disputes can be resolved peacefully through legal channels and dialogue. But sometimes, when these disputes escalate into violence, they can harm development processes, social harmony, and community welfare. This is why violence prevention is a policy priority for the government of Indonesia. To be effective, violence prevention efforts need to be supported by accurate and timely information about when, where, and why violence happened and what are its impacts. The National Violence Monitoring System, or NVMS, has been developed to achieve this goal. The NVMS is an online database that systematically records information about incidents and impacts of violence in Indonesia from 1998 until present. Furthermore, the NVMS is able to 1. Collect and process violence data quickly. 2. Provide accurate estimates of incidents and impacts of violence. 3. Organize the data into useful analytical categories. 4. Allow for tracking of trends over time and comparison of patterns at the sub-national level. 5. Update the data on a monthly basis. 6. Make the violence data publicly available. The main source of information for the NVMS database are local and national newspapers, which have been thriving in Indonesia since the Reformasi. The decision to use newspapers was made after a comparative assessment of several sources. Local newspapers were found to be the best source of information for NVMS because, unlike other sources, local newspapers in Indonesia report all types and scales of violence so that even small incidents can be detected before they escalate into larger episodes. Local newspapers provide both qualitative and quantitative information about violence so that a range of information can be recorded about every incident. Database on local newspapers can be updated regularly as this information is published routinely. Information from newspapers constitute public domain and can be shared openly. Although local newspapers constitute the best available source of violence data for NVMS, they are not perfect. For example, there is a possibility of reporting biases in a given newspaper. There is also the possibility of uneven geographic coverage and weak fact verification by a single paper. Through NVMS methodology, these issues are addressed in the following ways. 1. Instead of relying on a single newspaper, the NVMS database uses multiple local newspapers. An average of 4 local papers are used per region to ensure that weaknesses in one paper can be minimized by another. 2. Selection of local newspaper use in the NVMS database is done after a qualitative evaluation of its editorial policies and verification procedures. 3. The NVMS database methodology emphasizes the collection of factual information from newspapers and does not rely on editorial views and interpretation, which may be subject to bias. For larger incidents of violence, additional verification is conducted, including cross-checking with non-media sources, such as publication from NGOs and academics, as well as field checks if necessary. The NVMS methodology has been built upon previous similar attempts in Indonesia and abroad. For example, UNSFIR database in Indonesia, the Aceh Peace Monitoring Update Program, as well as collection of data about Hindu-Muslim conflict in India. As the first step of the NVMS data collection process, all selected newspapers from each of the target area are sent to Jakarta, where they are digitalized. From these digital archives, a highly trained team of data analysts selects all articles that report violence according to standardized definitions. These selected articles from each newspaper are then collated to create unique incidents of violence as a basic unit of the NVMS database. Following this, every violent incident is grouped into 4 categories of violence, such as conflict, crime, domestic violence, and violence by law enforcement agencies. For every violent incident collected in the NVMS database, several key variables are coded according to standard coding books and instruments. These include 1. The date and location of the violent incident. 2. The affiliation and number of actors involved. 3. The weapons used. 4. Physical impact. 5. The form of violence. 6. Intervention attempted to stop the violence and its result. 7. A brief summary of the incident in text. These codified incidents are then entered into a customized database so that systematic information about violence can be analyzed easily. The NVMS website for the National System for Monitoring Violence, or SNPK, can be accessed through the internet and can be used by government and non-government institutions as well as academics and the general public. NVMS data can be used to 1. Map vulnerable areas for effective targeting of policies and programs and then evaluate their impacts. 2. Monitor trends and level of violence in order to detect emerging problems. 3. Track the development of specific issues in target areas and conduct follow-up research. 4. In the event of major incidents, the NVMS data can be used to provide quick background information about the issues and actors involved. This was a short introduction to the National Violence Monitoring System in Indonesia that is now available for use. It is anticipated that this digital system will be useful for us to work together in finding better ways to prevent and manage violence so Indonesia can continue on its path to democratic consolidation.